Okay, folks, this is Paul NO0T, currently in near Haswell, Colorado. And we're going to have Lance, W7GJ, give us a talk tonight about his trip to Tristan de Cunha and all the excitement that he had there. So, Lance, would you like to uh, introduce yourself again and maybe share your screen?
Let me just see if I can share my screen here. I'm not quite sure how we do that.
It should be down the bottom of your screen in the middle. Oh, I see it's coming up now.
I
There you
think,
go. I can see the moon.
how's that? Okay, it worked.
Yeah, now you just have to go in the
Well, good
slideshow.
evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm going to give an overview of my last 6-meter DXpedition, which was to Tristan de Cunha in the South Atlantic, uh, better known to hams as ZD9. I first really considered this back about 15 years ago when K7CW told we were chatting, and he said, "Boy, one place you really ought to go is ZD9. That would be a rare spot." And I looked into it at that time, but it was only in recent years that I seriously tried to get there. It's a very tough spot to get to because there are so limited number of berths available to sail there. Um, but I hope in my presentation I'll just give you an overview of the trip and what it was like in Tristan da Cunha, and I'll include a little bit of ham radio stuff. And if there are some questions at the end, we'll try to address those too.
Hey,
There had never
Lance,
been,
Lance, can you
yeah,
go to slideshow modes? You're not in slideshow mode.
I am.
Well, not what we're seeing.
Do you see you don't see
We
things?
yeah, we're seeing like the editing mode, not the slideshow mode.
Okay, let's see. I don't see that. So let
Maybe
me
you need to
see.
pick a different screen.
Let's see what we can do here.
You put PowerPoint
How's that?
into there you go.
Yeah, that's
Slide
good
mode
now.
before you share your screen.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's great feedback. Okay. Uh, as I said, I'll just give you an overview of all the aspects of the DXpedition here. Uh, First of all, here's where it's located. It's in the middle of the South Atlantic. Um, what isn't quite clear in this picture is where it is in terms of geomagnetic field lines. It's a little further south than ideally it would be to work TEP and so on. It's 37 degrees south. Um, so it's kind of at the edge of being able to reach TEP. But then on top of that, you have the South Atlantic anomaly, magnetic anomaly, which screws things up too. But because of where it's located, you have to take a ship from South Africa to Tristan da Cunha, and there are uh, typically 3 ships that do travel that route. Once a year, the Agulhas, which is an icebreaker owned by South Africa, goes there because they have a meteorological station on Gough Island, which is several hundred miles southeast of Tristan da Cunha, and the only thing that there is the meteorological station and the crew that needs to be replaced every year. So there are lots of berths on that. There are 40 berths that are reserved for Tristan da Cunha travel on that ship, but they're usually completely full. And then there are a couple of ships, cargo and fishing ships that are leased to Tristan de
Did you want to
Cunha,
call CQ?
and
Was your call time? Is that what
every
you're
few
asking?
months they travel.
I thought it's Emily.
Chris, Chris, we're competing here for the microphone. Thanks. And so they travel every few months, but there are only a small number of berths available on those ships. So this is except for Gough Island, this is the layout of Tristan da Cunha and Gough. Tristan is in the northernmost part of the ocean. And this map of Tristan shows it's about 7 miles in diameter, and all the settlement on the island is here in the northwest corner of the island. There's the village, which is Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, and then they have a place called the Potato Patches, which is a flat area down southwest of the settlement where they have herds of sheep and cattle, and each family has a garden or a plot there where they grow mainly potatoes, but they also do other root vegetables too. So ZD9 certainly meets my criteria for going on a 6-meter DXpedition. It had never been contacted before on 6 meters from North America, so I like to try to go places that are quite rare on 6 meters. And they have 24-hour 220-volt AC, which is really super, and also a safe and quiet place to set up. It's English speaking, and the view to Moonset was most of the time it was really super. On northern declinations, it was out over the water, and toward North America and the Caribbean, it was out over the water. Moonrise was a little bit more of a problem because I had to beam out over the village, and I was blocked on southern declinations by the actual mountains on the island. And my background here is the view of the mountains on Tristan da Cunha. As I explained before, that it is a difficult place to get to. It took me several years because I kept getting bumped because so many other categories of people take priority over just visitors. But I was also worried about the weather. Eurus ZD9W went there a year ago, and he had to stay inside for a week before he could get out and try to put up antennas. And then when he did, he had his HF vertical break in half. So I watched him pretty carefully. And in response to that, before I went down, I shortened the top section of my mast for my 6-meter beam from about 4 feet down to 1 foot. And I also planned on double staking all the guy lines for it because he had problems with that too. Fortunately, I didn't have the horrendous weather that he had, which is not unusual for Tristan da Cunha. There's not a whole lot in the way for thousands of miles, and especially during the end of their winter, they get terrible weather. Here's a list of the passenger priorities. You can see I'm down at the bottom here just as a visitor, but they have a lot of medevac people that go back to Africa for things like hip replacements, knee replacements, and making babies, cancer treatments, all that sort of stuff. They can't do that on as at least as well on Tristan de Cunha. They have a new hospital there, and they're pretty good about being able to do routine health things, but serious surgeries, they have to go back to Africa. And it takes over a week to do that. Then, of course, they have a lot of government officials that come and go, government contractors that come and go, so and officials. So, and then priorities given to the locals too when they want to come and go. So, it's a tough place to get to. When I prepared for the DXpedition and packing, the way I do it is I put all my equipment in individual boxes to protect them if the suitcases get banged around. And I use these pool noodles and other foam to pack everything. And in the case of Tristan de Cunha, I put all the equipment inside big Ziploc bags too, to waterproof everything, because my experience going to Clipperton Island was they said that the boat had a dry hold. And when I got there, my cardboard boxes full of equipment were falling apart because of the water, salt water washing around in the hold. So it was really difficult to pull out all the equipment in one piece. All I had were scraps of cardboard boxes, and I wasn't even sure I had all the equipment. So I just wanted to make sure that everything stayed dry when I got there. And here I am leaving Missoula, landing in Denver at sunset, waiting in Newark for an overnight flight to South Africa, sunset landing in Cape Town, South Africa. And I was all smiles because I had all my bags in Cape Town. I had gone down a few days earlier than the Antarctic icebreaker was leaving, because I didn't know for sure that all my equipment would make it down there with me, but it did. So that was great. So I stayed a couple nights at the Garden Center Apartments, and that's the view from my room. And that's a view from their parking lot of Table Mountain. So at 10 a.m. On the day of departure, September 5th, I just took my gear down to the dock, and that's the Agulhas. It's quite a large ship. I didn't plan that I was going to be going on the Agulhas. I was on the wait list to go on the MV Lance, which I thought was more appropriate. Although it's a much smaller ship, it was scheduled to go over in the middle of September. But at the last, I got an email in August, and they said that the MV Lance was totally booked. But the good news was that there was a last-minute cancellation on the Agulhas, and so if I could get down there by September 5th, I could sail over on the Agulhas. So I made last-minute plane reservations as soon as I got that email, and it all worked out. Before we could board the ship, they ran all of the passengers through rapid COVID testing. And then we put our luggage out on these cargo nets, and they loaded the cargo onto the ship with cranes. And we had since it's a real dock and a real ship, we had a little ladder that we could go up to board the ship. And there I am on the ship when we're just leaving Cape Town. That was my my room. I shared this 4-bunk room with two other guys from they were there on UK business, on official Tristan business, but one was from the UK doing administrative observations and study to see about more funding for the Tristan de Cunha. And the other was Claude. He was from South Africa, who worked for a German crane company, and he had to go maintain the crane at the harbor at Tristan da Cunha and rethread it with steel cable or something. So on the Agulhas, they have several different kinds of lifeboats. They have these the normal little ones over here, but they've got some great big ones, and these were the lifeboats that they said we could survive in for days. And so we had lifeboat drill, and we all piled into these boats. You can see looking one way here and looking the other way. It's pretty tight in there, and I can't imagine how we would manage things for more than a few hours in there. But I guess if your life depends on it, we figure out some way to survive. This is the bridge on the Agulhas. Was really beautiful. We had to make special arrangements to go up to the bridge because they just don't let people wander in there. This was the mess hall. They fed us in shifts. This was one of my roommates, Ian. He's the guy from England, and this was Claude from South Africa, and this was Martinette. She's a helicopter pilot from South Africa. And they had a whole helicopter crew here because the only way to land on Tristan da Cunha during bad weather, which is most of the time, is by helicopter. And the only way you can ever land on the islands like Marion and Gough is by helicopter. So because they have no harbors, so that's why we had the helicopter pilots there. So after 7 days, oh no, this was 5 days over there. Here we are arriving at dawn, and you can see just over my left shoulder here, there's that flat place on the northern end of the island. That's where the settlement is. And here are the helicopters on board the Agulhas. And we used those to load everybody over in shifts. There were five people per helicopter, and they did eight sorties to get everybody who was landing and staying on Tristan ashore. This large pasture was right in front of their elementary school, and it's routinely used for this purpose. And here comes our luggage. My host from next door, where I stayed at a guest house, and the host came down in a truck and took all my gear up to the house for me. That was great. That was my lodging right there. And later, I used this little picnic table in my front porch area to try to set up a temporary 6-meter dipole to work people when I didn't have the big antenna up. But it was nothing like the big antenna. So I'll go over the setup here for the ham radio. This was the building that I set up in, just as ZD9W did. It's they call it the creche. It's preschool daycare. It was temporary housing for the crew that came over to build the hospital for them, and afterward they just repurposed it to be a preschool daycare facility when people are at work. There are about 240 people that live on the island in the little village, and most of them are employed either for the government on the island or for the lobster factory, which processes the lobster, the fish that they catch. So I had to walk through here whenever I went to the ham shack, because the little ham shack was at the other end of the building. And here's what it looked like inside the ham shack. This is the antenna and the mast as I took it out of the nylon bag that I carried it in. And here I am starting to assemble the elements and parts of the antenna inside the ham shack. Now outside, as I said before, I was double staking everything. So I had my host provide me with some 1/2-inch diameter, 2-foot long steel rods, kind of like rebar. And I knew that he was going to be able to have those. So I brought some fender washers and hose clamps to use with those, so that the ropes wouldn't pop off the ends of them. And then on top of that, I secured the lines back to the large 16-inch plastic guy stakes that I take with me to use as backup. And over here I have the cradle that the mast sits in before it's raised. It's sitting on top of the prop. It's important. You can see in this picture, it's important to have the prop well guide and stationary the whole time, so that when you raise the mast, you can lower the mast back down with the antenna on it, and it'll be captured in the cradle. And the antenna won't be damaged. If you didn't have that, the antenna, when you brought it down, would just crash. Keep that in mind. Here's the antenna ready to go. You can see the mast there sitting on the prop and the cradle. This is the edge of the creche building, the large creche building. Unfortunately, this door on this end of the building was right next to the ham shack, but they had it all sealed off because it leaked too much, so it couldn't be used. So that's why I had to go. Actually, to get to the antenna, it was a 200-meter dash to go out and turn the antenna, and then a 200-meter dash back around to get inside again. And here we are ready to raise the antenna up with the falling derrick that I packed. I had plenty of helpers for the raising, because there were a number of people, probably about 50. Well, there were 40 who came over on the Agalas, and they were there for 3 weeks. And so it was easy to recruit helpers while I was putting together the antenna. And there's the antenna up, ready for action. And here's the aiming circle that I installed at the same time, and then I installed the little pointer to calibrate the aiming circle, so I know where the antenna is pointed. The sun was out when I put up the antenna, and so I used the sun for that. The That was about the only day. I think there was one other day when the sun was out. So just a very, very cloudy uh, and often very rainy climate down there at that time of year. You can see that the aiming circle looks very pristine and stiff and is held down with nails, so it can't shift around. It is, however, not infallible because with 50-mile-an-hour winds and pouring rain, you'll see later what happened to it. So here's my first night on the moon, and that was September 15th. And I had 11 stations in the active stations list on Q65. It was great. Signals were really good, and I had good weather, and I could move the antenna around. Much of the time, though, I was forced to keep the antenna tied down near the horizon. This is what the contact looked like from G8BCG. You can see here I'm replying sequentially to multiple different stations that have been calling me. And finally, I called Peter, and he came right back. And you can see he's copying me calling all these people. I ran into a couple that were down there for a year, and they were doing lots of photography and video for Tristan de Cunha, and he had a drone, and I had seen one of the videos that they did for Tristan de Cunha, and I asked him, I said, "Hey, is there a chance that you could do a drone shot for me of the antenna?" And he said, "Sure. We just have to wait for good weather." Well, it just turned out that on September 18th, the sun was out, and it was before he took off to go back to South Africa. So he contacted me the next day. He said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I got the drone stuff done yesterday, and you know, here's a USB drive with the stuff on." So that was great. This is a still shot from the drone, and you can see the crash down here. It basically is just a bunch of containers that are all clamped together to form this big building where the preschool thing is, and my ham shack is right down here with the window closest to the antenna. So it was great. I only had 50 feet of feed line to the shack, although it took me forever to go all the way out and around to move the antenna. And, you know, I was dreading this, but not entirely it was not totally unexpected. I saw this front coming in, and I thought, oh boy, tonight's going to be a tough one. And it was in the middle of the night that I mentioned before. The sleet was coming in sideways at 50 miles an hour. I was soaked to the core. And this was me inside, totally soaked. I couldn't wait to have the moon set so I could go to bed. And here's what the effect was on my aiming circle. This picture was while it was blowing in the wind. That stiff double laminated aiming circle got ripped out of the nails and just was folded up like tissue paper. And that's at ground level. So you can imagine what the winds were like. I just put a concrete block there to block it from the wind and hold it down, and that worked well for the rest of the trip. But the wind was frightening. So I try to anticipate what problems I'm going to have and take the right equipment and tools to fix things ahead of time. And almost always I seem to anticipate the problems and things go pretty smoothly. But there was one thing that I hadn't anticipated at all. The Murphy finally arrived in the form of a cow or multiple cows. And that was looking out my window. So what I did was I had some extra ropes, so I roped off the access to the antenna area, hoping that I could deter the marauding cows from rubbing up against my guy lines and scratching their backs and trampling things. But this is how much my rope fence discouraged them from coming in. The little cows really enjoyed laying on the rope fence, and the larger cows took down my prop, which, as I explained earlier, is necessary to be able to lower the antenna. So I was a little concerned about lowering the antenna, and I had to take it down. I was actually scheduled to leave in the beginning of October. So my last planned day of operation was my birthday on September 28th. And then at the end of the day, I needed to lower the antenna down. So I got some helpers to, first of all, I put up the prop where I thought it had been, and got helpers to make sure to help me lower the antenna so that it would fit in the cradle. And it did work okay. And I did get the antenna down that day. This was moonrise on my birthday, September 28th. And I ate birthday cake while I was working EME. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit about the area. Edinburgh, the Seven Seas, the settlement on Tristan de Cunha seemed not that different to me than a small village in Montana. So it's a close-knit farming and fishing community. They're pretty self-sufficient. As long as you like to eat sheep or cattle or potatoes. They do have a few other things, but now, of course, with the ships coming every few months and having 24-hour power, they have a number of refrigeration containers, so they have all kinds of food in storage. Because it's a UK overseas territory, the form of money they use is Great Britain pounds. And it's also a marine sanctuary around all those islands. It's quite famous around the world. In fact, if you do a Google on pristine waters by National Geographic, they have a special, an hour-long special that focuses on this area. Their big industry there is lobsters, and they have a factory down by the harbor to process the lobster tails and send them out. One surprise to me was that the average wage per hour down there was 3 pounds per hour. So people are not, I mean, the cost of living for a visitor down there, except for the housing, the rent for the guest house and so on, the cost of living was quite low. All the items in the store were relatively cheap. I expected that food and supplies on such a remote island would be very expensive. They always have been for every remote island I went to before, but they're quite subsidized. Um, and the people are not poor at all because they're basically self-sufficient. Plus, they're paid for their work, and they have really incredible benefits. I mean, basically, if they have to go on a medical evacuation to South Africa, it's paid for along with their leave, and they're given a per diem while they're in South Africa, and their medical expenses are paid while they're in South Africa. So uh, they're they really do have some amazing benefits. One of the interesting things about it too is aside from the lobster input to their economy, they have rentals of the property to South Africa for the weather station, for example, to CBTO, which is the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization that has facilities all over the world, and they've got 5 sensing locations on Tristan de Cunha, and that are remotely fed through FM repeaters. The data is sent to their a little office building up on the hill next to where I was operating. Then toward my moonset, they have a geomagnetic research station, which monitors the South Atlantic anomaly, which is run by a German company. So all those people pay rent to Tristan da Cunha, and the CBTO needed 24-hour power. So they subsidized the 24-hour power, which is provided by a diesel generator on Tristan da Cunha. So they have a lot of sources of income that have really helped develop the area. And this is what it looks like when you come up from the harbor. That's what it looks like as I was walking to my guest house from the ham shack. Everybody in the village is involved when the lobster boats come home, because the lobster boats can only go out when the seas are calm, which is, I think they went out 2 or 3 times in the 7 weeks when I was there. So here are people waiting for the lobster boats to come back so they can work in the help in the lobster factory. And there's a catch being unloaded by one of the cranes down on the wharf. Here's the finished product ready to be exported. And they did have a little store where you could buy groceries or odds and ends, and this was a shot inside it. They have a community swimming pool, but since I was there in the winter and spring, it was not in use. This is the top predator down there. It's the skua bird. Apparently, it will attack newborn lambs and small animals, cats and things. I only saw one cat while I was on the island, but almost everybody has a herding dog, and they are all males that have been they've been raised and trained in South Africa, and so they've imported the the dogs for managing their sheep herds and cattle herds. And there is a once a day bus to and from the potato patches. So if people need to go to the potato patches to work on their gardens, here's the bus stop at the southwest corner of town. So I hiked out to the potato patches a couple times, and this is the main road out there. It's also the background of my on my camera here. That's along the M1 to the potato patches. And they had celebrated Halloween there, which was kind of an unusual thing for them. I think it was just reinstated that they would have Halloween. So these are people who came to me, and I had bought some individually wrapped candies at the shop. So it was great to be able to hand them out. And only about a mile east of town is a place called Pig Bite Beach, and there were some rockhopper penguins there, and this was my first chance to see actual wild penguins. And this is a video. I hope it comes across a little bit for you. I know my internet is very slow, but this was a picture of the rockhopper penguins actually hopping on the rocks. They can cover that kind of terrain a lot more easily than I can. It's really quite impressive to see them do that. And then the opposite direction, right behind me, were seals while I was taking the videos. Here are both street signs in Edinburgh, the Seven Seas. And this is what it looked like quite often. It was, low clouds and overcast. And during September, it was always misting. It was drizzling, or as we would say in Pennsylvania, spritzing. There are a couple of cemeteries that date back a couple hundred years. And the roads are very narrow. They're basically one lane, but they do have some heavy equipment over there, and they go around and pick up people's used propane tanks and deliver fresh propane tanks as they come in every couple months. On the east end of town, there was an eruption just out of the side of the volcano, and they had to evacuate everyone off the island. And as I hiked up to the top of the lava flow, this was the view of the settlement from that point. Here you can see where the cemetery is and the school, and this is the pasture where they land the helicopters for when they have the agalas. Over here is the creche where I operated, so I was on the northwest corner of town because I definitely wanted to be able to point out over the ocean for my moonset. And also in this area out here is the golf course. And we use the term pretty loosely. There are no holes, but the idea is to try to get your ball as close as you can to the flags and avoid as many of the cow pies as you can. On my birthday, as you can see, it was a nice day, one of the few nice days. And so one of the guys from England who came over on official UK business to set up better internet on the island had also brought a lot of camera equipment that he bought himself, and he put it on top of one of the vehicles, and he drove around and recorded all of the data for the Google Earth Street View of Tristan de Cunha. And if you go to Google Earth and you go to Tristan da Cunha and switch to Street View, you can go through and see all of the video. And if you go around the hospital and look to the north, there is my 6-meter antenna. And there's the MV Lance, because I was scheduled to leave on the MV Lance. And I took down the antenna that afternoon after he had already filmed it. So I'm glad it made the record for Google Earth Street View. But as it turned out, the seas became too rough, and the MV Lance was delayed for several days. I think it was like 5 days. So I decided, I think I'll wait and go back on the merchant vessel, fishing vessel, Edinburgh, at the end of October. And so a few days after I took down everything, I put up everything again. And in fact, I did that, put up the antenna and assembled it and raised it by myself. And I did it in one day, and it was finished by 6:30 at night. So I could get on the air again. And after I took it down the second time, I put up a little sloping dipole at the house to try to work some people while I was waiting for the Edinburgh to leave, which was, again, that one was delayed for 5 days too, because of the seas. But I did only work, I think, one opening to Europe with this arrangement. One of the reasons that it was so many delays is because you can see one of the cargo ships. This is the MV Lance out here. The only way to transport goods and people to any ship out here is to use these cargo rafts, which are powered by outboard motors. And they have to be able to go out through the harbor here and to the ship. And additionally, the only way to transfer the propane cylinders from the ships is on these cargo things, not even the Agulhas. You can't put the propane cylinders on helicopters. So this is what they transport all their lobster crates and everything to the ships. You can see this is a kind of a narrow little harbor. It doesn't take very much swell to cause big breakers coming into the harbor, and these little outboard motor powered rafts can't make it out through the harbor. So neither can their little lobster fishing boats that they use. So they're very dependent on having calm seas, and the seas get a little bit calmer during their summer months, but I wasn't there for that time. So finally, I was scheduled to leave on I think it was the 27th of October. They were going to try to leave on October 25th to avoid the bad weather that was coming in, and they didn't make it. So I finally did depart on the 3rd of November. And in order to leave, you go in the green box and the little green box is raised by a crane, and it puts you out on one of these cargo barges. And then the cargo barge goes out into the ocean, and there we are approaching the Edinburgh. And then they use a crane to put everything on board. And this is the farewell picture to Tristan de Cunha. You can see the settlement here. This area here is the old 1961 eruption, which was where their harbor used to be here. But you can see it got completely filled in with lava. And this was my my cabin for the 7-day passage back to South Africa. We had good weather for the first 4 days, and then after that, the last 3 were pretty bumpy. Here we are in the good weather. And you can see the seabirds following the ship. It was unbelievable. They never did flap their wings. I think that they were ducting off of the currents, slipstreaming the ship or something like that. It was amazing to watch them. We had an evacuation drill, of course, on this ship as well, quite a little bit different than the Agalas. This was just a question of finding your life vests and putting them on. And this was the mess hall on the Edinburgh. There were 2 other passengers on the ship, Leon, who's South African, and James, who is the chief islander from Tristan da Cunha, and he was on his way to the UK for a annual meeting for funding the overseas territories. And that was the captain and the bridge, and we were free to go up on the bridge whenever we wanted to, and it was great to be up there and see what was going on. Here we are approaching Cape Town Harbor, and that's just the timetable for all the events. Lists all the delays of both ships that I tried to leave on. In the summary, I made 1,477 total 6-meter contacts. On terrestrial, I used FT8 and FT4. I did get the super. I can't remember what you call it now, but they had a super mode for
Maybe Super
operating
Folks?
FT8.
Super Folks, maybe?
Yeah, that's what it was. And I got that working finally. They made some changes to it, and I got it. It did work. But by the time I got that working, I didn't have any more good openings. So I only had a couple openings where I could have used that. It would have been nice because the openings only lasted like an hour or an hour and a half. And when they were there, you had lots of callers. I mean, over 20 callers a sequence. It would have really been nice to have that tool. But when it really got hectic, I did switch to FT4, which sped things up a bit, and got the stronger stations in the log. And then on Moonbounce, I used Q65-60A with Q65 pile up. And these are the stations that I worked on 6 meters. I worked 173 stations on 6-meter EME, which is more EME stations that I've ever worked on a DXpedition before. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I was there for such a long period of time, but it was also due to the fact that I had really no noise where it was really a super spot. I had excellent ground gain on my moonset. So it was really a joy to operate from there. And I think one of the reasons why it worked out so well for terrestrial also was that I had, my antenna was 170 feet above the ocean, looking right out over a downward sloping pasture to the ocean. And I had super ground gain. And a negative horizon. So I was able to get in on even on marginal openings. That setup really made that possible. That's why I didn't have such great conditions with the dipole. ZL1RS provided this graphic to illustrate the problem here from being in ZD9. You just don't quite reach up here on TEP. And the openings that I did have to North America were no doubt F2, maybe coupled with a hop off of here on my side of the geomagnetic equator. But the only way I could have gotten up there was F2, and it was quite often I'd connect with the Caribbean, but I needed more oomph to get up there. You can see down here where I was located at the high TEC areas were just a little bit out of range for me. During these same periods, there'd be all kinds of activity under these high TEC areas, but I was just a little bit out of them, and I only worked a few stations in South America at all. And then an hour later, this is at 1500, so it's the middle of the afternoon. An hour later, at 1600, you can see it's just got worse. So it just reminded me a lot of Montana, where the propagation just kind of works around your area, but you never quite get connected with it. So one thing that I wanted to do before I left was I got QSL cards printed that could be self-mailers, and I sent all the EME cards and a few of the F2 and TEP cards postmarked from Tristan de Cunha, and they went out in 2 batches. Basically the September contacts and then the October contacts. And the October contacts went out with my ship, and I think people are still waiting for those. But they should come out any day. The September contacts were received before Christmas. So where next to? Well, I'm really intrigued with ZF8. I think that's still pretty rare, and hasn't been on 6 meters for a couple decades at least. So I've been looking into that spot.
Do you mean ZD8?
Oh yeah, I need ZD8. Well, have you worked ZD8?
Yeah, right.
Oh, I've got ZF8 on here. It's supposed to be ZD8, which is Ascension Island. And I think a lot of people would like that one. It's really hard to get a visa to go there, though, if you're not military, because the only thing that's on ZD8 is American and British military bases. Another spot I've been looking at is Rotuma. I keep hoping that all of these DXpeditions to go to Rotuma will come through, but Rotuma has never been on 6 meter EME, and that's going to be a tough one though, because you have to take a generator with you. Another one I've been looking at is Central FO, Tahiti. It seems like a lot of people still need Tahiti. I operated from the Austral Islands and from the Marquesas Islands, but uh, there are still a lot of people around the world who still need FO. And then H40 would be really pretty rare all over the world, except for, of course, Japan. I mean, uh, they work all that stuff on TEP, but it would be a rare one in the North America and also in Europe. So I've been looking at that one too. I'm not sure when the next one's going to happen though, because I can't go this spring. But maybe in the fall or certainly next year. So, do we have time for any questions? And does anybody have any questions? Well, thank you very much for allowing me to talk about Tristan de Cunha and give you a little bit of an insight as to what it was like to operate from down there.
Hey, Lance, are you sick of lobster
Yes.
yet?
Well, you know, they eat a lot of lobster down there, a lot of lobster and potatoes. In fact, I had lobster at least once a week, and it was great. I have to say. You know, in terms of places that I've been, you know, I usually lose weight, but I didn't lose weight this time. I mean, it just had plenty of food, so it was great.
Good. Anybody else for questions? I'm sure you guys must ask something.
You get seasick on the boat?
You know, I had packed some Dramamine pills, and I never did find them. And I also took a lot of ginger root because, and I bought even more in South Africa because you know the hotel that I stayed at, the Garden Center Apartments, the first 2 floors of that building was a shopping mall, and they had everything you could imagine in there. So I said, I walked into one of the grocery stores and I said, I wonder if there's any ginger root here. And there was so much more than there was here in Missoula. So I got a whole bunch more. But as it turned out, I wound up throwing it away on the ship on the way back because I didn't need it. I wound up not being seasick. I just, you know, just after the first couple days, you pretty well get used to it. So, yeah, it was not bad.
Well, Lance, thank you very much. This was really well done and a good balance between the travel log and the operating. I appreciate it.
It looks like it was a very successful trip.
Thanks.
Well, I tried to keep it not so technical. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes into how to set up the antenna and how to get the most out of the operating and all that. And I didn't show the multiple kinds of AC plugs that I had to accommodate in this place, you know. I mean, you'd think that, oh, you know, I'll just make an adapter and I'll go with that. But no, there were 2 different kinds of 3-pin UK plugs, some blades, some round, that you had to be prepared for on this. And so there was a lot of little details like that I didn't go into. But
I bet the next time you're going to use plexiglass over that compass thing. Use plexiglass instead of something like you did use.
For the direction.
Over what?
For the direction plate.
The direction plate, probably use plexiglass next time.
You know, that's probably a good idea. That would certainly keep it down. I've already made a new aiming circle and got it double laminated downtown, and cut out a hole for the mast, and I've got it in my suitcase here. So that's been replaced, and I've replaced a few other things that were faulty for, got worn out on this trip. But maybe a sheet of acrylic would be good to put over that.
And maybe talk to a cattle guy to see what you can do about the cows. Maybe there's something.
I talked to the agriculture guy when I was down there, and he was very nice, but he said they couldn't put up fence across that area to keep the cows out, and they rotate the pastures around every couple of weeks. The people, you walk downtown and the cows are walking across the street. This is in front of the main administrative building. The cows just wander around and they chomp around on the grass, and nobody needs to mow their lawns in town because the cattle just go around and take care of everything. Which works out pretty well for them, I guess, when they rotate the pastures, but it didn't work out well for me for the antenna. And one of the reasons why I didn't feel so bad about taking down the antenna the second time, even though it turned out that the Edinburgh was delayed like 5 days. No, it was actually more than that, because the weather really turned bad after I took down the antenna the second time. And I was thinking that night, I was thinking, wow, I'm glad I don't have to worry about the antenna tonight. And then they were also going to let the cows back out again, so I didn't want to deal with the cows yet again.
Hey, Lance,
Lance.
what is their normal communication on and off the island?
They have the internet now, so it's kind of still iffy. It depends on where you are, but that's what it is. It's the internet.
Is it satellite?
Yeah. Now the government entities that are down there, like CBTO and the geomagnetic field monitoring station and things like that, they've got their own dishes out there. So I don't know what kind of facilities they have for that, but I think that they're still mainly using the internet for transmitting all of their data back and forth. But as far as all the residents are concerned, they use the internet. They have a wired telephone system between all the houses, and you just dial like 4 digits and you get that house. They used to have power poles that delivered the power to the houses along with the telephone and so on. But and I did see a couple remnant power poles while I was down there. But you can imagine, with the weather they have, that blew off multiple rooftops off the buildings down there, they pretty soon got underground utilities. So they have underground utilities everywhere. They've got a little machine that trenches the water lines and stuff for their new construction, and I saw that in action. So there's really no way they can have stuff hanging between power poles down there. It's just, the weather is just really severe. So one of the reasons that Simon went down there from the UK was to put in a Starlink system for them in the village. And I think one of the reasons why the Starlink, they were still having problems with that, was because it's just so much bandwidth trying to push through the little Starlink system. They had bigger satellite dishes from before that weren't really giving them the internet that dependency that they really wanted to have. So
Did you have any issues between your operation and any of those research or measurement stations?
well, it's funny that you should ask that. I did see a bunch of little birdies when I would point toward Moonset, and when I pointed at the geomagnetic uh, field studying place, and then like the last week, one of the people from the government asked me, "Hey, are you getting any interference from the geomagnetic people?" I said, "Oh, nothing that's really bothering me. You know, I just operate around them, you know." Well, they would like you to send them an email. They've got a question for you. So I contacted Jurgen, who was the guy in charge of that, and he was setting up a he was setting up for a conference in Brazil on the geomagnetic field observatories, and he said, "Yeah, we've had a few days of strange readings. We're just wondering, you know, what the times were and so on when you would be pointing that way." And I confirmed with him that the interference they were getting was during moonset when I was pointed right at him, and I assured him that I was only going to be on for a couple more days, and he said, "Oh, that's fine. That's." So they just discounted the measurements for those days. So that was the only problem that I had. Now the CBTO people, you know, their stuff is, I think it's a more of a acoustical pressure that they're measuring at their things. And I've got some pictures of their setups, but they've got pipes going out in all directions, and they acoustical pressure reading things that they store the data, and they're transmitting by FM radio. So that was not a problem. But I never had any serious problems with interference.
What radio
Lance,
My
what did
big
you do for?
My
What did
my
you do
big
for-
problem was getting internet. You know, I showed you the picture of this building that I was in with all these containers that were clamped together. And from the outside, there are these huge ground wires connecting all of these containers to each other. Basically, you were operating inside a Faraday shield. And it was great, you know, not having to uh, have interference come in. Uh, the only signal coming in basically was my coax coming through the window, which was great. But in trying to receive the Wi-Fi for the internet in the next building, out of the next building to me, it was really hit or miss. And at night, if there was nobody else on the circuit and I turned the laptop just right, I could barely connect. Sometimes if I had an important message that I needed to send, or I needed to you know, correct the clock on the laptop, I'd have to go out to the entrance to the creche and connect out there, and then walk back to the shack with it. So the internet was it was pretty marginal. For the
Lance, what did you-
serious. Oh, go ahead.
What did you use for boom trusses? What size line? What strength?
Oh, for the boom trusses, I just have really fine stuff for that. It's what came with the 6M8GJ, and I think it's like 16th inch Kevlar or something. I mean, it's really tiny stuff. For the guy ropes. I've got, Kevlar, Dacron covered Kevlar ropes. And, they're still in pretty good shape, despite the fact that I've gotten the reflector a little bit too close to some of them sometimes during wet conditions, and it's arced over and burned those lines a little bit. But I do have some heavier boom guy material, but I've hesitated to put that on because everything works so well so far with this, and the antenna has survived through some pretty severe weather, and I'm not too excited about increasing the wind loading more. I decreased the wind loading a little bit, but with the little mast that I have that comes up off the boom, and then the fiberglass cross piece that holds the guy lines, that arrangement that I built is a little bit lower and seems to be a little bit less wind load than what I had up there before. But I have to say that yes, the wind there was horrendous, and what I did most of the time, the worst winds usually were out of the west. And in that case, the halyard that I use with the falling derrick to raise the antenna up, I usually keep it just coiled and hanging down at the bottom of the mast. But at Tristan de Cunha, I always used it over to tie to the fence that was to my further west of the antenna, to give me more strength in the top of the mast against the wind. And it was really necessary. And then when the wind came out of the east, I would do the same thing around to the east and tie it to the creche building so that it wouldn't go anywhere. It was nice to be able to do that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've currently got some boom guy material that's just a couple millimeters, and it looks scary, too small. And so I was curious what you were able to have withstand the winds there.
Yeah, this was just the standard stuff that came with the 6M8GJ. I'll try to measure it for you with a digital caliper a little bit and provide you the background on it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I got in late, but I'll catch the front of it. Yeah, thank you, Lance. Just got back.
Lance, I've been enjoying the tour of the island on Google Earth.
That was pretty amazing that all happened. It worked out so well.
That's pretty cool. That really as you're narrating, I'm kind of touring the island. Thank you.
I must say, Lance, I was really disappointed that I did the same thing and I did not see you mooning the camera.
Well, yeah, if you go around the hospital, you can see the 6-meter antenna. I'm glad that the timing of that all worked out, and I didn't take it down until after he had zoomed around town and recorded everything.
Great, Lance. Thanks very much for spending the time with us this evening. And I've recorded this, and I'm going to be putting this on the YouTube channel when I get back into Denver. But thanks again for everything you've done for us and for all the contacts you've made via the EME.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you everybody for coming. It was great to share the experience with you.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Lance.
Lance. Thanks, Lance. It was really nice.
Thanks, Lance.